Stephen King here, and I'm going to do a reading from Never Flinch, which is a book that's coming this spring, I think, in May from Scribner's. And I just wanted to talk about it a little bit first. And I like detective fiction, and I like horror fiction, and I like suspense fiction, but not necessarily in that order. I've always wanted to write a whodunit. I like the books by Agatha Christie and people like Ruth Ware, but I also like books like The Talented Mr. Ripley by Patricia Highsmith, where you know right away from the start who the bad guy is. And this once I wanted to try to write something different.
Hey, Gary here. Welcome to BookMob episode 65. Today I'm going to be talking about the new release of the new book from the master of horror, Stephen King. His latest book, Never Flinch. It's probably not a horror story. It's a book that, from what I've read, has drawn critics from all sides to be bemused and confused by what Stephen King is doing. However, all I want to say is from the start is that Never Flinch is an entertaining and great sort of novel, a great storytelling novel filled with plot, and I think he's done a good job of making sure that his readers are entertained, which is, to me, one of the most important factors in reading. You don't want to waste time reading. You want to sit down and be lost in a world, into a narrative, into a story that you can take and enjoy. You can imbibe the text, and at the end of the day, when you put the book down, you can say that reading time was valuably spent. And I can say, regardless of what the critics are saying right now, because a lot of the thing is this negativity about how it's just not up to standard, not up to scratch of Stephen King. But I think, this is, we're talking about a bloke who's written just loads and loads and loads of books. And to still be able to be a master of storytelling at his age after so many novels, I think it's fantastic. And when you look at Stephen King's history, Never Flinch is from his later part of his career when he has used... he's become less and less horror orientated, but at the same time, he still manages to imbibe avenues of fantasy, phantasm, and at the end of the day, he tries to create characters that you can engage with, whether you love them or whether you hate them. But his main character, he's drawn from a number of books in the last decade, or the last, say, 5 years. Holly is a detective who runs an agency, and he's just made another book, another story that involves her life. And King, okay, let's make if I look at Stephen King's great novels, the ones that I really consider magnifique, we're talking about books that are dense, books that are filled with horror elements, books that are filled with great characters, deep characters that you can get to know. It is not, okay, we're not in the same ballpark. But again, that doesn't mean that he's not worthy of a read. Because when you read Never Flinch, you just enjoy it. It's a great, the way he plots the story. I have read that he, in this novel, Never Flinch, that King has decided to work with one of the things that he doesn't. He tends to be more character and driven, and the plots are something that are just happening around the characters. I don't know if the plot is so important in this book, because he builds tension, he builds excitement. He has multiple characters. They crisscross. There's a network of inquiry and exploration of the way people behave in extreme circumstances. So when you read the book, you are waiting. It's a page turner, because you want to know what happens after a certain scene, what happens after a certain chapter. And it keeps you, and okay, I've got to say that I'm talking about a personal approach to reading. I find that in order to be entertained, I want to be gripped, I want to be engaged, and I want to be in touch with the characters, and I want to have some currency with what is going on in each and every character point. And he multiplies the story by having, various characters doing various things throughout the book, but they all make sense. You don't get lost, you don't get confused, because the idea is that he's building towards a big ending. And I think he achieves it in this novel, Never Flinch, quite well. I don't think that you can stand this book up against, say, work that he did 30 years ago. If you look at books like Carrie, which his first published novel, which was really, really intense, beautifully written, concise, very short, but at the same time, if you read that novel, you walk away feeling, wow, that was something special. Never Flinch, okay, is not something special. It is not something that you can climb to the top of a mountain and scream and say, you've got to get this. No. I think Stephen King is a brilliant writer. To me, he's a type of a Dickensian kind of author who has, over the last 40 years, produced so many great stories that he now is at the state where he can write anything and people will read it. However, at the end of the day, no one's going to read a book that isn't engaging or entertaining. I don't think that too many people will be able to pick up this book and put it down because it's a well-written, structured story. It has an atmosphere of fear. There is elements of horror in the murders and so forth, but at the end of the day, it's not fantasy. It's pretty much a detective mystery novel that many writers have used. But at the end of the day, the name Stephen King does attach itself to a certain type of novel, and perhaps the critics that I've read in the last couple of weeks who've been kind of scornful of the novel that he has written, I don't think have understood that he's a storyteller and this is just one of his stories. Now, if some non well-known writer had released this book, well, perhaps you could argue, that it's kind of like mundane and it's kind of in the vein of so many other mystery detective novels that are out in the world. However, Stephen King does have his own beautiful sense of place, and I actually highly recommend that people have a look at Never Flinch, Stephen King's last novel. Hopefully not his last novel, because he's getting to an age where it might be his last novel, and that you can perhaps think about taking up the challenge of reading this book and enjoying it, and knowing that you're getting something that is it is scripted well, it is structured well. I loved it. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good book. I highly recommend it to any reader, hesitant readers, non-readers. And if you're looking to give a gift or something, the gift of reading to someone in your life, well, I think that Never Flinch by Stephen King is something that you can confidently pass along to someone else. So it's a great book and a wonderful read. At the end of the day, it was entertaining, and that's what counts. Okay, thanks for joining us. Before I go, I'm currently reading The Ministry of Time by Colleen Bradley. It's something that I'm finding tough. It's kind of juvenile literature to an extent, but according to the 4-page accolades given to her, obviously people think that she's a wonderful author. To me, it's a very sort of banal kind of story, and anyway, I'm getting through it, but it's not capturing me at all in any way. And I've read, I'm going to be reading Tyrant Cohn Iggulden's second book in his Nero series. This just came out, so I'll be getting stuck into this in the week to come. All right, well, thanks for joining us, BookMob, on episode 65. Please send any questions, queries, like and subscribe if you could be bothered. It would be nice to hear from you. Remember, you can contact BookMob directly on bookmob1966@gmail.com with any questions or queries or suggestions for other books to review. Okay, thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next episode. Bye! Hey, Gary here. Welcome to BookMob episode 65. Today I am going to be talking about the latest novel from the master of horror, Stephen King. His new book, Never Flinch, has just been released, and despite I've read a lot of negative reviews about it. I mean, not negative in the sense that they trash it, but negative in the sense that they don't feel that Stephen King has lived up to his name. However, all I can say is that I read it pretty quickly. I enjoyed it. I found it highly entertaining. It was a very, very good book, as storytelling goes, full of great characters, awesome plot. So I can say to you, if you know anyone who's a hesitant reader, or someone who doesn't read, or someone who reads occasionally, Stephen King's Never Flinch would be one of those books that you can easily gift to someone to say, hey, take the time out and see what you think of the story. It's, it's not a horror story by any stretch of the imagination. It's not Stephen King of the 1970s and 1980s and so at the end of the day, what is it? It's a, and I definitely don't want to come across and say the word is mediocre. It's a very, very well written, structured novel, but it has so many of Stephen King's tropes of characters, and it's one of those books that he has just recently said is that he wanted to write a book with a plot. I mean, most of his books are character-driven, and there are plots within, but at the end of the day, the plot that he produces in Never Flinch is just remarkably interesting. I mean, when you read it, it's a page-turner. You turn around and you go, hold on, let me just... Okay. I've got some weird thing that's just popped up here. Anyway, let's get back to the book. So Stephen King has written a novel that is about about maniacs. He's pretty good about writing about maniacs, and this is one of those books where there are, I don't know if I should give it away, 3 maniacs, and throughout the book he creates, if this book was written, I think I'm just guessing, I think this book was written about, I don't know when he actually wrote it. It was published now, say 2022, 23, 24. Now, what is remarkable about this book when I read it is that Stephen King, in this book, divides the USA into 2 major tribes, just like the election of 2024. There's a huge element of abortion involved in this book, pro-choice, pro-life. It all centers around different two different tribes, and I guess I think you can surmise what tribes I'm talking about. Madness, obsession, good versus evil. It's the private detective v the state police and detectives. The private detective has a freer hand to explore the messages and the outcomes of crimes, whereas police detectives have to follow rules, regulations, and standard operational procedures. It's a duality. The whole book is a duality between one side and the other. Now, if you know Stephen King's politics, you know where he stands. But my point is that he has looked at the 2020s and he's gone, this is what's happening in the United States, and this is how I'm going to tell the story. The political divide. There is a organized baseball game between the cops and the firefighters, and again the duality of one side versus the other. One of the main characters is an anti. Well, I wouldn't say anti. Let's say is a pro-life feminist who goes around to different cities, visiting cities and making her speeches. And of course, she brings along her supporters and her attackers. And in one scene, her by mistaken identity, her assistant is attacked, and this character throws bleach at her, which is very, very reminiscent of the Posey Parker, the English feminist, who was attacked in New Zealand, and someone had thrown tomato sauce all over her face. And it's just amazing how, from a reader's point of view, I've picked up popular culture activities that have come through in the media, and Stephen King has kind of aligned himself with two of these sides, two of the tribes. It's a very tribal novel. Like I said, when you read it, you'll kind of, things will light up in your mind and you'll go, oh, I know where he's coming from. I know what he's talking about. Anyway, there is a strong element of mystery. This is shit, isn't it? What am I talking about? Is this a novel worth reading? I think it is. I think it's a fun read. It's entertaining. It's an escapist novel. It allows you to take some time away from the madness of the world. And I think that at the end of the day, people want to be entertained. But don't wait for the Netflix series. Don't wait for the Paramount series of Never Flinch by Stephen King. Give your reading brain a time and a mind to enjoy the beauty of words and literature. Let yourself exercise your own creative input. Enjoy reading about characters that are not real, but are real to you in the moment that when you read them. So the time that you hand over to reading is worthy. Sooner or later, Stephen King will not write any more novels. And I think that one of the beauties of reading living authors is living within their cultural perspective, is that you see the way they see the world. Doesn't necessarily match the way you see the world, but I can't help but think that Never Flinch is one of those novels that are written in a very tumultuous period of cultural and social and political history. It is so obvious to me that the characters in Never Flinch are people who are being stretched by the elites, by propaganda, by slogans, by sayings in order for you to act in a certain way. But when you read Stephen King's Never Flinch, you'll find yourself floating away from your everyday world, and you'll get trapped and locked into his world as the way he sees it at that point in time. It's a page turner. It's well worth reading. It's highly entertaining. It's engaging. And I would be surprised if people didn't pick it up, people who picked it up and didn't finish it. It's one of those novels that is purely it's like drinking the syrup. It's very, very easy to ingest. It's enjoyable. And there's nothing wrong with having popular culture Okay, so Stephen King's Never Flinch is one of those novels that comes out every couple of years, but because it's by the master of horror, the master of character, Stephen King, it's something that is worthy of your time. It's not a great novel. It's not something that, it's not Dostoevsky, it's not Tolstoy, it's not Hemingway. It is somewhat like Dickens. If you've ever read Dickens, you'll know what I mean, is that it's storytelling. It's just characters, a bit of plot, and it's escapism. And escapism, to me, is something that is vital in popular culture today. So thanks for tuning in to this episode of BookMob, and I'll be back next week, and I'll see you in the libraries, all the bookshops, all the secondhand bookshops, or on eBay, or on bookloversworld.com. Thanks for joining us. Thanks. Bye-bye.